Hello and welcome to Van's vlog. Today I'm going to be reading to you Gifted Hands by George Lewis and Sean Lewis. Let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 1. Broken Homes, Shattered Dreams. For a long time, Ben had sensed something was wrong. He had not heard his parents scream or shout at each other for days. He seldom even hear them argue. Instead, they would just quit talking to each other until the whole house filled with a deep and disturbing quiet. Those silences gradually became longer and much more frequent. His father seemed to be gone more and more. Yet Ben was still surprised by his mother's announcement. It started like any other day for 8-year-old Ben Carson and his 10-year-old brother Curtis. Sorry, I have to get a drink of water real quick. And his 10-year-old brother Curtis. But it turned unforgettably sad when their mother sat them down house. He's not going to be living here. He's not going to be living with us anymore. I don't want him to leave, Ben cried. Please, make him come back. But his mother shook her head. Benny, your father can't come back. Why not? Ben wanted to know. He's done some bad things. And that was as much as she would tell Ben and Curtis. Ben argued with his mother. If Daddy did something wrong, why can't you just forgive him and let him come home? It's not that simple, she replied, looking like she was about to cry. Ben worried if he'd done something wrong to make their father angry. But Ben's mother assured him that his daddy loved him very much and was not mad at him at all. Still, it hurt. Ben's heart was broken. He loved his daddy. Even every night he prayed for his father to come home so their family could be together again. But that never happened. When he left father, it took all the family's money, including nest egg. Ben's mother had managed to store up by scrimming and saving her money over the years. Miss Cardenson had no job skills or work experience. So the only way she could support herself and her 2 sons was by cleaning houses and taking care of other people's children. It was hard work, but she was determined to do whatever it took to provide for her boys. Even after he learned the truth, Ben continued to love his father in spite what he had done. But Ben loved and respected his mother even more. He knew how hard she worked and how much his father's actions had hurt Mother. Sonia Carson, Ben's mother, had been born into a large, extremely poor rural in the Tennessee family. She was next to the youngest of 20 children, yet she only knew 13 of her siblings because she spent most of her lonely, unhappy childhood moving from one foster home to another. She had just been 13 years old when she was just 13 years old when she met and married Ben's father, an older man who promised to rescue her from her situation and take her up north to Detroit. He promised to provide for her the whole life of wealth and adventure. Ben's father was a charming man and a good provider. He loved parties and seemed proud of what Ben's father was a charming man and a good provider. He loved parties and seemed proud of his young wife. He often brought Ben's mother expensive gifts and clothes and jewelry. Ben's father seemed to spend money as fast as he earned it. Over time, Ben's mother became concerned about their finances. After the boys were born, Ben's mother worried where her husband was getting his extra money. She worried that he might be involved in selling alcohol or even drugs. She finally found out that he had another wife and family, and Sonia had told him to leave. Ben found it tough to give. Ben found it tough to give up his hopes for a happy home where his family could all live together again. But that same year his father left. A new dream entered Ben's life. That dream was born on one Sunday morning during church. Ben sat on the edge of the pew, listening intently as the minister told an exciting true story about a missionary doctor. Robbers were chasing the doctor and his wife, the minister told him. They ran as fast as they could, around the trees, over the rocks. Trying to stay ahead of their pursuers. Then they came to the edge of the cliff. They had nowhere to go. But right at that very blink of persistence, they spotted a crack in the rock just big enough for the both of them to crawl into. When bandits got to the cliff, they would believe victims were nowhere to be seen. It was as if the doctor and his wife had vanished. The robbers didn't know what to think. They stomped around, cursing, then left. The missionaries were safe, and the story ended. Ben breathed a sigh of relief. What a thrilling life of missionaries must lead. God hid the missionaries in the cliff of the rock, the pastor exclaimed. And he will do the same for you if you give him your heart and let him protect you from harm. That's what I need, thought Ben. So when the preacher invited those who wanted to give their lives to Jesus to come forward, Ben walked down the aisle to where the minister was standing. After listening to that exciting story, Ben knew two things. Hold on. Wait, what? Ben knew two things. He wanted Jesus to watch over him, and he knew what he wanted to do with his life. I know what I want to be when I grow up, Ben told his mother as they walked home from church that day. A missionary doctor. His mother stopped to look right at him. Benny? She said. If you ask the Lord for something and believe, He'll do it. It will happen. His mother encouraging response confirmed the dream for him. From that time on, Ben was convinced he held on to that dream, despite many other difficult things that, would happen in his young life. Excuse me. Since Ben's father was no longer providing any money, Sonia had to work longer and longer hours, holding 2 or 3 jobs at a time. Many mornings she left before dawn and wouldn't get home until her sons were already asleep. Sometimes 2 or 3 days would go by without seeing Ben or Curtis, even seeing their mother. I can't say that word. Extinguishing? I can't say that word. Her extinguishing schedule, the pain and sadness she felt about the end of her marriage, the heavy responsibility of raising 2 boys alone. of raising two boys alone, and her own fear and uncertainty about the future all added up to the overwhelming feeling of discouragement and depression. Sonia often felt worried. She might not be strong. She might not be strong enough to make it on her own. Sometimes she wasn't sure she could go another day. Eventually, a few months after Ben's father had left, Sonia decided she needed help. She told the boys, "I have to go away for a few days to see some relatives." "Are we going too?" Ben wanted to know. "No, Benny," she said. "I have to do this alone. Besides, you boys need to go to school. So I've made arrangements for you." Sister Scott, an elderly woman they knew from church, stayed at their house and took care of Ben and Curtis. "Until I come back. Just until I come back," their mother told them. Sonia made like a special adventure, and the boys enjoyed spending time with Sister Scott. She was a terrific listener who had focused on whatever the boys told her, and would exclaim, "Oh my!" every other sentence or so. One day, Sister Scott found out that Ben and Curtis wanted to learn how to roller skate. Here we go about roller skating. Yeah, they wanted to roller skate. "I can teach you," she told them. And she strapped on a pair of old-fashioned one-size-fit-all skates. The kind that fit onto one of those shoes that are adjusted with a metal key. Then she gave the boys a demonstration. They created a sensation in the neighborhood. An 80-year-old woman skating up and down the sidewalks of Detroit with two boys in tow. Ben and Curtis had all they could do to keep up with her. They thought, if any old lady like her can roller skate, we can too. And before long, they could. The boys never really wondered why their mother made a number of those visits to relatives over the next few months. Not until they were adults did Ben and Curtis learn those special occasions when their mother went away were actually times she felt overwhelmed by her life, and that she would temporarily check herself into the mental hospital treatment for depression and emotional stress. Then, when she felt capable of coping with her life again, she'd check out her son's. Wait, what? She'd check out, and her sons would welcome her home. Life would go on each trip. Every summer, including the ones in Michigan State Fair, in the Michigan State Fair. Sonia would save enough money to pay for their administry, so Ben and Curtis could take in the arts and crafts, agriculture, livestock, and educational exhibits. But they never had enough to pay for tickets to any Midway rides. The boys could only watch other children on the rides and listen to high-pitched screams as children were tossed and spun and whirled and twirled in the air. Ben especially liked watching children riding the bumper cars, banging into each other and laughing. For years he dreamed of driving one himself and tried to imagine what that would look like. Over time, Ben learned that he could find enjoyment by imagining many things. He had never flown on an airplane or seen a luxury cruise ship or been inside a limousine or even eaten in a sit-down restaurant. But he learned that this imagination could create a vivid pictures of what such experiences would be like. Sonia Carson continued struggling to pay her bills and take care of her sons. As the months passed, it became clear that there was no way they could afford to stay in their Detroit home to save money. Ben's mother decided to move her little family to Boston, Massachusetts. They would live with their older sister and brother-in-law, Ben's Aunt Jean, and Uncle William Avery. Sonia explained to the boys that they Sonia explained to the boys that they would rent out their house in Detroit far enough money to cover monthly mortgage payments. That way, when times got better and she had saved enough money, they could move back into their Deacon Street home. The next chapter is chapter 2. I'm only going to read one chapter today. Thank you for listening to me read this book. And have a nice rest of your day.